Hey guys, so I have another kind of unique, out there video idea. I wanted to do a commentary video for a star I got a couple days ago. Actually, at this point, it might be like a week ago. Um, and this is Super Mario SezNative Reminiscence Course 14 Red Coins, also known as Cosmic Square Garden. So I want to do a commentary over this red coin star because I think it's particularly one that looks very cool. And of all the stars I've ever done, this is the one where I just did it and I'm like, I really want to do a commentary over this star. So I figured what I would do is I'm going to go back in editing and I'm going to put a little difficulty marker probably on the bottom left of the screen. So as you're watching this, you can see what the difficulty of every jump is. So I guess we'll kind of jump right in. So yeah, this is course 14 red coins and it's a really cool level. It's called Cosmic Square Garden. So it's got this like space theme, but it's also got like random piranhas in space. You'll see it's very interesting. And most of all, it's a level with very unique jumps from start to finish. So this is kind of like the spawn. It was actually like the star 3 and star 4, kind of the intro path, but it's going to be the spawn path for reds. I don't believe there's really that many ways you can route like red coins. I think there's kind of like one way it works, or like it all flows together. So you do have to do these jumps every time. They weren't that bad once I got used to them. At first, like I was dying like to them occasionally, but kind of got used to them. And they're not too significant, but it was hard enough where I needed to focus every time. Whenever I started a new attempt. So, but we have our first kind of harder jump coming up here. And these are the cubes for star 3. So the whole theme of star 3 was these cubes. Yes, this here is the first tricky jump. First, you have to kind of get onto that cube in a way that worked with the fire cycle, and then you have to do some very like awkward, like straining wall kicks, especially to hit that low one. It's very hard to tell like depth perception, and height as we're doing that. So that was a very common like early killer for attempts, that jump. And followed right after it, we have like a weird arc section with these like very like thin ceilings that we just have to kind of arc around. In fact, you might not even call these arcs. They might really be called like vertical crossovers, because you just have to. It's kind of more like a crossover, but because you catch it in like another wall kick, if that makes sense. So that's another. It's kind of like two back-to-back hard jumps. After that, though, kind of chills out for a bit. Now we're heading pretty deep down the star 3 path. Yeah, you have sort of a chill part here where you just kind of turn around the slopes. So nothing too bad here. Now something I do want to point out. I'm about to do something that, as far as I know, no one does who's ever done this star. So most people try to get around that wall and go to the cube because there's like a path to get a certain red. What I opted to do instead is I actually went further down the star 3 path, and there's a certain point where I jump down and get the red. You'll see. So what that decision meant is I had to do a little bit more jumps than other people, but I found them easier. So I'm sure a lot of people would be like, why is he doing that? This section? That's the reason. I found these jumps not too bad, so I didn't mind redoing them. And it meant I had to learn less jumps. Like sometimes when Kaizo, I'd rather have to learn less jumps and just redo stuff I know. So like this section is all for star 3, so I already knew how to do it. I kind of made this kind of like a cycle, and it's not as hard as it looks because, like you'll see here, that fire spewer can't get me because it kind of goes like uphill. So there's a lot of parts where the fire spewer can't get you. So I didn't find any of these jumps too bad to redo. And there's a strat coming up. There's a jump coming up where I actually found a very good strat for. And I thought it made doing this path a lot more viable. So you have to worry about this Goomba because he could totally camp the edge. So I found a strat here where I stand right here, and then just run right, side somersault. All I have to do is hold left and right, and it just works perfectly. Like I clip out at the perfect time. So that jump, which started out like kind of annoying, actually has like a very free like setup, and that made me way more willing to kind of do this path. But yeah, it did kind of make the intro longer. Like I had to do these jumps every time. And at this point, I'm actually almost at the star. Like the star is in a couple jumps, so I basically had to redo this entire star just to get this one red. And this is only the second red, by the way. So it was definitely a very long and drawn out spawn, and had some difficult parts. But yeah, I just rather would do that than learning a new part, and it frankly seemed kind of bad. So I was like, I'd rather do that. So speaking of challenging parts, we're actually about to get to, in my opinion, by far the hardest part of the whole stage. So it came at a rather inopportune time because this is like right when the attempt is getting good. You know, you kind of got out of spawn, you're ready to go, ready to get a good attempt going, and then you have the hardest jump in the level right here. So this is the tunnel section, and if you know anything about Japanese Kaizo, it's kind of like it's a bit of a sequel to the Gate of the Evil tunnel section. That is another like super Kaizo level, and it had this tunnel section that was really tight, really brutal. And this one's kind of along the same lines, honestly. In fact, I'm not really sure which tunnel's harder. It's actually kind of an interesting debate. But this tunnel, you'll see, it killed so many attempts. You have to do a lot of height control. There's a lot of hairy moments. Like I don't think I've ever gotten through this tunnel without there being a close call. Everything is like, it's just really tight in here. Because if you hit your head, you'll probably die. Or it's so easy to go too low. Or just miss a wall kick or touch quicksand. Like there's so many things that can go wrong in here. I'm going to point out when we get to the worst parts. Because it goes on for like a good minute and a half. Like it's a long section. And it's more like, it's more continuous than the Gate of the Evil one. So this, believe it or not, I found this one of the hardest parts. I kind of found a strat where like I rubbed my head at a certain time, and it kind of worked out. But believe it or not, that I found was one of the hardest parts because I was kind of like descending downwards like in the tunnel. Another one of the hardest parts. This part probably more obvious why it's one of the hardest parts. You have to worry about you can go too low or too high, and then you kind of clip in between there. So that's very hard. This part was a little hairy, but not terrible. You notice, by the way, there's 2 reds in this tunnel, so you have to go through it. Luckily, though, both of these reds are actually quite easy, and like they don't really add any difficulty to the tunnel itself. The real challenge is just getting out of the tunnel. And now this is like right at the end of the tunnel. It was a little hairy because you kind of have to like strain left to like make sure you don't bonk like on the last ceiling. But after that, like if you get out of that tunnel, it's a good attempt because getting out of tunnel is not easy. Plus, I had to do star 3 beforehand, so getting to this point, even though I have 4 reds, it's already like it's challenging. Like I probably didn't get here that many times, maybe like 10 times. If I had to guess, like that's already hard. Now we have a jump that's like a little bit more kind of boring because it's just a lot of crossovers. But you'll notice if you check the bottom of the crossovers, it's almost like someone's taking a scissor and like cutting off the bottom because it's getting shorter and shorter, which makes the crossover harder. Because I just got hit. I didn't really think this through. I think it's stupid you can get an ad on your own videos. But anyway, so yeah, you'll see these crossovers are getting more challenging because the bottoms are getting cut off, so it's getting shorter. And in fact, at this point, I actually opted to like set up my position before I did the art, because that kind of guarantees I get more height out of it. And then this is a really awkward part because you have to do a crossover outside of this, and you have to get the red. But to get the red, you have to do like a very, very, very subtle like forward tap. Like you have to kind of like just tap your like forward a little bit to like strain in. But if you do it too much, you won't make it far enough. So you have to do like a very light tap. It was kind of weird to learn. And then at this point, you kind of get spit out like right here. And if you do the normal stars, this is kind of like the beginning of the star 2 path. So we're gonna do kind of another whole star path. But that's sort of the norm at this point, you know. We're in the Super Kaizo domain, so at this point, like you kind of expect, we're just doing all normal stars. So here we have another awkward height control section. It's actually not that bad once you get the hang of it. This part is like a little weird because I had to kind of like go neutral at some points, just completely lose all my speed. Here I wanted to make sure I was on the very edge because we're going to do an arc here. And if you're not on the very edge, it's very easy to bump your head. This is like a rare, like easy part. Like these wall kicks are very simple to get down, and so are the wall kicks on the other side. I'm about to like flip over to the other side of this wall. So this is like a rare kind of breather moment. Even though like if you don't play Kaizo hacks a lot, it probably looks like just as hard as anything else in this level. But trust me, you can probably get the hang of these wall kicks pretty fast. The trick here is I'm using my shadow to know where I am, like depth perception wise. And once you do that, it's pretty easy. Now, on the total contrary, this next jump is one of the hardest jumps. It's probably in the top 5 hardest jumps. Because one, you have to do a lot of like good height control here. And 2, then you have some like weird camera moments as you transition between these walking sections. This is like a very weird camera moment where I don't really know what's happening at all times, so I kind of have to just get a feel for like how much forward I need to hold. So that is a jump I was definitely always like, I was like butt cheeks were clenched as I was doing it because definitely need to have a lot of like awareness. That triple jump can be a little scary if you don't get a ledge grab. Sometimes you have to just get a wall kick and then hold back. These crossovers are not terrible, but they're definitely hard enough where you need to focus. They kind of reminded me of the crossovers in Acidic Arsenic Swamp from Lost Universe 2, but they're definitely harder than those because there's some, you'll see, there's some parts where you really have to strain. You have to like strain around these walls, so it's kind of like, it feels weird to do. That combined with the fact that you have to really get the wall kick timings down because obviously you're doing front cam. So you kind of see me whip out a like variety of wall kicking cameras. Sometimes I'm straight, sometimes I'm sideways like this, sometimes I use diagonal. It really depends on the situation and whatever kind of works for you. And right after that, we're like jumping into, this is another pretty harrowing jump. It's not the hardest ever, but yet again, it's another one where like you have to get a feel for it because it's very weird. I'll show you what I mean. So I mentioned in the beginning of the video that there'd be like kind of piranhas like flying in space to keep up with the theme. So you have to get an enemy bounce off this piranha. But trust me though, that piranha, like the hitbox is like not where you think it is. Like you would think you have to jump like over him, like right on top of him. You actually jump like past him to get the bounce. It's very weird, and I'd be willing to bet like most like even like pro Kaizo players would probably like mess it up at first because it's not like how you would expect. It feels very weird to do. It's kind of like counterintuitive. But once I got the hang of it, like it was actually not terrible, but again, definitely like it's probably the most bizarre jump in the level because the hitbox is just totally weird. Yeah, I guess I feel like piranhas have always had a weird hitbox in this game, but it's very weird. So now we're doing like a small amount of cheese, probably the only cheese you'll see in this video. I'm doing a long jump here, so you don't have to take a reclimb. I believe in Pluto's original video, he kind of did a reclimb there, just jump down to spawn. But yeah, you can kind of jump right here, and it cuts out having to do like the spawn jumps again, so that's pretty cool. All right, get ready to vomit because I'm about to do a lot of camera flips. So these walls, it's very cool. They all like manipulate your angle just a certain way, so you can like infinitely wall kick up these walls, even though they all have changing angles. But as you can see, I do a lot of camera flips. Even though I play on keyboard, I'm probably one of the most like camera flippy players. It's just something I got used to. But like, if you don't watch a lot of hacks, it probably looks like complete garbage. Like I'm just flipping through the camera so fast. This jump was not terrible. I just made sure to count the wall kicks to make sure I was doing the right amount of wall kicks, and you can probably tell there's a good like visual cue where I'm lining up the corner with that edge of that blue wall, and then I believe I counted to like 11. Well, there's like 11 total wall kicks in this section. Not terrible. You just have to definitely have a plan going into this section because you don't want to be like making shit up on the fly, you know. Yeah, so now we do. There is kind of like finally a breather stretch coming up where it's a little bit easier than the stuff we've been doing, but it's not easy enough where I can totally like let my guard down Plus, at this point, I'm like kind of far on the star, so you wouldn't want to let your guard down anyway. You'll see what I mean. So you do a dive here, get on this slope. Now, what I opted to do here, this is kind of like a IQ moment. I got a ledge grab here, and then like wall kicked back into the wall kicks. The reason why I do that is sometimes I get a little bit of an angle coming off that slope, and I don't want any angle on this section. So to guarantee I have no angle, I do a ledge grab, pull back, and wall kick, because that's going to guarantee I'm parallel to these walls. So I mentioned that we had an easier section coming up. This is just a very long wall kick section, but like I said, you can't completely let your guard down because I'm still doing front cam wall kicks. And whenever you're doing front cam wall kicks, you really have to like make sure you don't miss a wall kick, because obviously it's not very clear like where the back wall is. You kind of have to count. So whenever I do this section, I'm literally counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, and I probably get up to like 50 because it is a long section. You have to do a lot of wall kicks. And the section's actually mirrored, so I'm about to do like basically that same section, but on the other side. Now it is worth noting, you could do cheese on this star and not have to do these wall kicks. The reason why I decided not to do the cheese is because you have to do the cheese, you have to get 100 coins at a certain point. And I didn't really want to deal with like 100 coins and like keeping track of my coin counter. So I just decided like I would just do hundreds. And once I got them, I'm like, whatever. And then I would just do no cheese. So I didn't do that cheese where you spawn this. I believe Remu first did it. But I didn't do that cheese, so you're kind of seeing the intended route here. Because I was like, yeah, I'm like, I just really don't want to mess with. It's kind of annoying because you have to track how many coins you have, because you need to spawn the 100 coin at a certain spot, because the 100 coin star spawn helps you do cheese where you can totally skip all those white wall kicks I just did. But the thing is, they're not even that hard to begin with. It's pretty basic like wall kick timing. Like, so I was like, I don't know. I feel like I was like, I don't need to do the cheese. All right, so we're finally done with that part. So it kind of goes on a while. This section's kind of interesting because you get an angle out of that, and then the angle you get here is kind of varied. So you kind of have to like play it by ear, like what angle you have. This angle I have looks pretty like, I don't know what the word is. Like it's very like, it's a soft angle. Like it's not. So I needed to do like more wall kicks. Sometimes you have more of a wide angle, and you don't have to do as many wall kicks. All right, this is like probably the first kind of hard jump in a while. It's very weird because like I didn't find like any like amazing like angle setup. I kind of just looked at a particular pattern in the stars, and I never found something that was like, oh, that's like the best angle ever. But I looked at something like there, and then I did a chain. Kind of like have to like really strain to get in. But this is another like this is yet again. I feel like this is like the 10th wall kick section where you have to have good like wall kick timing, because look, as you can see, you can't even see Mario, so you have to have good wall kick timing there, and then you have to like do a flip there, so you have to change angles there to like make sure you get in on the wall kick. So that's a bit tricky. Probably the first hard section in a while. This coin's actually quite easy because this angle works out perfectly if you're just 90 degrees. I think Pluto called that like the book wall kicks, which I thought was kind of funny. Kind of looks like an open book. We have kind of another break actually. This upcoming wall kick section isn't bad. That setup there is pretty simple. Just kind of line up the corners, and then you'll get an angle that works here. This is not too bad. You just have to make sure like you have the right setup angle, otherwise you won't get a wall kick here. At this point, we're very deep into the star 5 path. Like this is almost doing star 5. You see, we'll go down these wall kicks, and these are pretty easy. You just have to control your like lowering wall kick, like whatever. But like control your lowering wall kicks. But doing that's actually not very hard, and getting up is not hard either. If you're curious, by the way, star 5, you keep going down. It gets a little harder. Thankfully, you don't have to go all the way down that path. So. Yeah, getting up is also quite easy because it's very easy not to bump your head. This kind of reminds me of a section in Gate of the Evil, but that section was a lot harder than this. Like this is probably one of the easiest sections of the level, if I'm being honest. After that, there's another cheese here you've probably seen Am6 do, where he does like some kind of weird triple jump, like in the corner. I don't do that. I thought that looked weird, and I was like, I'm just gonna do this, the old school way. So because of that, I had to do a couple more jumps. But I'm like, whatever. As I've already said, I really enjoyed this level, so I didn't mind skipping the cheese. This section, I did have one death here. Even though I think it's not that bad, unfortunately I did die here. Just more height control with these like weird walls that like shift height. Yeah, at some point you want to strain in and then in again. Now, if you've been following my playlist of this hack, you've probably seen this jump already because this was actually in Key 2. Key 2 was like a collection of all the different like one jump from each level, and this was the jump it pulled. So luckily I kind of already knew how to do this jump. But with that said, it's still very weird because again, you have to control your like lowering wall kicks, and it feels weird. Again, it feels very weird to do. Like when you first started out, you're like, oh, this is weird, and you can't really see where you're going for a while. With those wall kicks, by the way, I do 10 wall kicks because that gives you a pretty straight angle. Those walls are like slowly changing your angle, so 10 wall kicks is like does the trick there. Now at this point, we're coming up on the ending. And the ending of this story I feel like it's pretty infamous. It's very scary, but this part isn't terrible. I did have one death to the ending, unfortunately, but after I did so, I went back and practiced, and I found a pretty good strat to deal with this ending. So I think, like in retrospect, it actually there was a good strat to kind of sort of like solve this jump. I mean, solve might be a big word because I don't know if it's like 100% solved, but I felt pretty good going into the second time. I'm like, if I get it, I think I can. But even though I quote unquote solved the last part of this jump, you'll see it's still pretty harrowing. And I'm not talking about this part, by the way. This is kind of all still like the build up to the last jump. None of these jumps were terrible, but again, like pretty hard for an ending. Like even this jump feels kind of weird because you kind of like strain and then like into that camera flip. So this is the final jump I was talking about. So we have a bit of a thin section. If you're someone who does the level entries, which I think you're supposed to do the level entries technically, if you're someone who does those, you'll recognize this jump because this was the jump you needed to do to get into course 14. But it's actually a little different here. You'll see, but kind of the same idea. You're going to see as they go up, these wall kicks, they're going to get thinner and thinner. And it gets really stressful at the top because it's like literally laser thin. Like it's so thin. Like I think it might be thinner than TD thins. I'm not even joking. You'll see how thin it gets. Like it doesn't even look like I'd be able to like wall kick off it. It's that thin. Yeah. So here again, you just have to kind of keep wall kick timing. Yeah, you're probably at this point sensing a theme in this level. A lot of like unique like wall kick challenges centered around controlling your height as well as just your wall kick timing. But this isn't even the thinnest it gets. Now like look how thin this is. Like that is like I think that's thinner than TD thins. I mean I don't know. You have to get like a ruler out at this point, but that is very thin. So I opted to do this in side cam. And then I have a certain setup where I want to kind of line myself up with the darkest blue. And then I want to get a firstie. And if I get a firstie, it kind of makes it where I don't need as much height off that wall kick. Instead, I had more speed. And then you see I changed my angle to a forward angle so I can actually see like where I was, because otherwise you just easily overshoot or undershoot that jump. All right, well, that's about all. Hope you guys enjoyed this commentary video. And I guess you get to see what kind of videos I watch. A lot of like Breaking Bad and sports and all that, but a little Dragon Ball. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. And yeah, maybe I'll make this a regular thing. It just depends on if I do cool stars. You know, a lot of stars are kind of crappy and wouldn't make for good commentary videos. But yeah, all right. Thanks for watching, everybody.